Budget was remarkable by being unremarkable. It was all the statements of intent that we want to see by government were made. And that was reassuring. So, words were used like competitiveness, inclusiveness, seamless solutions, skilling, connectivity, efficiency. These are all critical words that a government must use to define a roadmap for sustainable growth. And the finance minister did, during the course of her speech, use all of these words. It was also reassuring for me that she focused on public infrastructure investment as the trigger for a virtuous cycle that will then draw in private investment. The private investment is not forthcoming right now because private sector is still facing underutilization of capacity. Growth is therefore going to depend on the extent to which government actually finances infrastructure, public sector infrastructural development, and public sector investment, and specifically infrastructural development. So that was, I thought, reassuring as well. I was, I have to say, positively surprised and again reassured by her comment on direct taxes and the fact that she is now reposing trust on the taxpayer. She talked about voluntary compliance. It's a statement that always reassures people like me. When a government says, "We will presume your innocence unless we find you guilty." There were all the right sort of statements about the green transition and the methods by which the green transition could be financed. So I have to say that in some sense, this budget did cover all of the important issues related to employment, infrastructure, the small-scale industry, ease of doing business, energy transition, climate, education. So that was the reassuring. But as I said, it's not remarkable to have those statements made in a budget, because if you don't make it at this time of change and uncertainty, then you're going to actually cause a lot of concern. Now, what was missing for me in this budget were actually the details regarding the energy transition. There was a reference in one line or one sentence about the PLI, the production-linked incentive that would be provided to the solar energy, but that was it. There was no talk. There was no more. There were no more details about how indeed the government was going to go down the path of decarbonization. Now, having actually identified 2070 as the date or the year by which the government will reach net zero carbon emissions, I think it was important, or it is important it would have been important for this one sort of State of the Union speech to actually lay out the short-term pathway to get us to that decarbonized end state. There was no such comment, and that was disappointing. I was also actually looking forward to some more details on how the GST could be reformed or simplified. There was that, dramatic sort of introduction of how much the government has raised in the month of January from GST, and that's creditable. But that still does not take away from the fact that the GST is a very complicated tax system, and it needs to be simplified. more than that, you need to actually bring in under the umbrella of the GST sectors like petroleum. And there was no, there was no even a hint that there was going to be an expansion of the GST coverage. I think it would have been actually also very important or reassuring if the government had spent a little bit more time and effort on defining on how they're going to handle the finance sector, and particularly the banking reform. So that was my, you might say, disappointment. At the end of the day, like all budgets that define a statement of intent, the proof of the pudding, of course, lies in execution. Everything and anything that the finance minister has said, she's in some form or the other said it before. And she's had a challenge in executing some of her promises. I don't think we have now the luxury of poor execution. So I'm just hopeful that the growth target that they've set for themselves will indeed be achieved, because if they don't, the issues related to unemployment are going to get so severe that we will find the social sector under tremendous stress, or society under tremendous stress. So I think ultimately my one-line sort of reflection on the budget is reassuring, but please concentrate on executing your promises.